Om dare du dare, du re so ha. Om dare du dare, du re so ha.
All right. Well, we are engaging in this next volume of these teachings. This one's called Following in the Buddha's Footsteps. And so it follows upon three previous volumes, fourth one. And so I'm sure you remember everything that was in the first three. It's funny, it will refer to them, but I'll be taking excerpts of this as we work through and bringing up things that I hope we find really practical in our lives to meet us where we're at and help us to live in a life that we find meaningful and liberating from afflictive states. So, with that motivation, I always try to teach in a way that allows for people to meet the Dharma at whatever level they're engaged with it at, the motivations, the aspirations that they have, all the way up to complete Buddhahood and all the way down as simply as I'd like to live a better human life with less suffering. So, whatever your motivation, welcome. And I hope you find these teachings valuable. So, last week we unpacked refuge, the idea of really depending upon a refuge, a safe place, something dependable, and talked about it in the terms of understanding this, what will be referred to as always the three jewels: the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, jewel of refuge. And the real emphasis there is it's a process. It's not, it's, hey, I'm going to take refuge. Got it. It's, in order for any real refuge to take place, well, anything, we need to depend upon it. We need to recognize its value. It needs to be reliable, not blind faith, but a faith built upon applying the teachings, discovering whether they work for you or not, uh, having some real sense of something we can lean into, which only develops over time. It only develops by taking the teachings, applying them, practicing them, analyzing them. I think I mentioned last week, a lot of us will spend a lot more time investigating our purchase of a car than we will our whole spiritual path, and what that entails. So, really important to take time to reflect, to test. And then at some point, you'll notice that you have a little bit of a refuge. Yeah, well, this part works for me. Then maybe a little more and so forth. But refuge in the Buddha Dharma Sangha takes place as a process, a journey of discovery. And then the Dharma jewel itself isn't simply Dharma that we read or that we learn, but rather the realizations that come. The truth, Dharma essentially at its core, truth. And so we'll gain some capacity to bring it into our life in ways that are productive, eliminating suffering, cultivating clarity, peace, and well-being. And then those realizations, they become a part of how we are. And so Dharma is, uh, also the realizations we gain on the path. And Dharma is found in other traditions, right? It's the truth found in different spiritual traditions. It's found in science. So Dharma's, uncovering and exploring how things exist, how we exist, the world we live in, true causes of happiness, true causes of suffering, and so forth. And here, Buddha has a very clear, organized pathway to unlock these bits of wisdom that we can cultivate and realize in our own lives. So we talked quite a bit last week on those points. And the next point is as one even begins this journey, His Holiness and Venerable Tubed Children think it's nice to take just a little time to reflect on the nature of the mind and its potential. And like, well, let's start there. So that's where we're at in the text. Yeah, I need to move this pop-up-y thing out of my, oops. Ah, you can try that again. Sorry, my little pop-up got in the way. There we go. The mind's potential and the existence of the three jewels. Before discussing the qualities of the three jewels, it's helpful to know the mind's potential and how mental purification occurs. These points were covered in chapter 12 of the Foundation of Buddhist Practice, and we'll briefly review them now. The greatest potential each sentient being has is to become a fully awakened Buddha who has the wisdom, compassion, and power to be of greatest benefit to all beings. A key quality of a Buddha is omniscience. How is attaining omniscience possible given our current state of ignorance? The mind has the natural capacity to cognize objects, but various obstructions prevent it from knowing phenomena. So we're just coming right to this foundation that we all have Buddha nature. It's already there. It's already there. And it's obscured. And now they're going to kind of share these points about how it's obscured. And so as we purify these obscurations, that Buddha nature is already available. Nice to know. Okay. Number one is an intervening object, like a wall, prevents us from seeing what is on the other side. So we have a lot of blocks that prevent us from learning, from seeing, from knowing. One of the good quotes on that is, the biggest obstacle to learning is the presumption of knowledge. Pretty hard to learn anything when I know everything, or, that idiot doesn't know it, or, contempt prior to investigation. That's a good one. And so sometimes, we're obscured. We don't, we have a wall that just prevents us from learning anything more, from seeing anything more. And walls also can be simple things like there's so much we don't know about the world. There's so much we don't get to experience. I'm living in Carbondale, Colorado right now. And, what's going on in, Ladakh in the Himalayas at a monastery and, the mountains. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what people's experiences are. I don't know. So, we can have walls in many ways. When you visit someone and different culture and different foods, different things, different ways of seeing the world. Different cultures have different words, right? Some words don't even translate. I find it fascinating, the word love that we use in our culture. It covers a lot of things, like I love pizza and I love my granddaughter. Those are very different things, right? And other cultures have like all these different words for love, because they're different kinds of love, right? So there's so much we can learn, but there's barriers to that learning. There's things like walls that block us. Um, let me. That kind of sense. The object is very far away or very small and is not within the purview of our sense faculties. So again, distance and so people can describe things. You sit there and think about just the discovery of planets and things of that nature. And so we had telescopes. Microscopes, the small stuff, right? Telescopes, the other stuff far away, right? So we didn't have, there's all these things in there we don't know about. We didn't know about plants. We don't know what these things are. So things can be far away and exist. We have no idea. Our cognitive faculties are defective or limited in their scope. For example, our visual consciousness cannot hear sounds. If we have severe cataracts, we can barely see. An animal brain is not equipped to comprehend philosophy. I'm pretty sure I know a few people who think their dogs can comprehend philosophy. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure cats do. So, yeah. But so, not all the conditions are ripened and we can have, people are colorblind and different ways that the sense faculties aren't there for us. And so that's an obstruction. A mind obscured by wrong views or one that is unable to concentrate because of an abundance of disturbing emotions cannot understand certain points, right? Can't dig deeply, really trapped in our views, trapped in a busy mind. Objects are so subtle, vast, or profound that unless we have meditative concentration or super knowledges, we cannot know them. So this gets into abilities that take place. People call, if you want to discover certain aspects of the mind, there's realizations and aspects of the mind that we can directly experience only through direct experience. And we can talk about them philosophically. Like, for example, non-dual experience, right? This feels pretty dual. That's cup. And I'm John. How is this non-dual? And but people have experiences of dropping. There is no object and subject, right? Non-dual. That requires meditative concentration. Or sometimes people have spontaneous experiences that can happen that way as well. But there's no way to create that or sustain it then. But there's knowing that can only happen through direct experience like that and requires that capacity. And the latencies of ignorance and mistaken appearances that they cause prevent the mind from knowing both veiled truths and ultimate truths simultaneously by one consciousness. So these are subtle imprints in the mind stream that veil that last little block of really understanding our direct experience about the nature of reality. And these, we all have these latencies. So you're like, okay, how's that list helpful? Yeah, that's what I'd be asking. Methodically, we can overcome all of them, is the point. So these are not innate within us. They're not innate at all. The mind is not subject. The pure nature of the mind is not subject to any of this. So they can be removed. All these obstacles. Oh, let's get to the point.
John, I've got a question.
Okay, you got a question.
Go back one page. I just want to Get that right. Okay. Number 5, and 6, I think both apply to this question. Is it seems like we could pretty easily delude ourselves into thinking we've attained some knowledge or some the knowing,
Mm-hmm.
just like we're kind of delude ourselves into thinking we haven't attained it. So I guess the question is, how do we know whether we are knowing these, have these abilities or have uncovered or purified these abilities?
Good question. And by the time we're getting to 5 and 6, at that point, I'm really hoping that you have a qualified teacher. And that's something to check in with. Um, Venerable Tenzin Priyadarshi tells a story, about these very high level monks, yogis training, and a teacher, and there were teachers overseeing all these yogis. And, the process there is you would be given, something that your practice, and you're off for months, and in your uh, hut or cave. And so you're doing that. And then one yogi comes out and he's like, I've realized it. Oh, I realize, like, he's excited. He's realized he's got this, and he's excited. He's coming out and he's like, yeah, I've realized that he's in a hurry to get to his teacher and realize, whoa, and he gets the teacher to tell him he's realized this. And his teacher looked at him and said, who has realized what? He's like, okay, back to the cave, because right, there's a lot of ego there. I, right, who's not self-existent anyway, who, this I that does not exist has realized what, and then, all the self-arising in terms of pride and, all the stuff that pops up. And so in just one quick question, it kind of sets them back on the track. So yeah, we can sometimes, but it's why it's good to check in and have some guidance. And so for 5 and 6, you're pretty far along the path. You're into states of the mind, depths of experience, where you're able to have some experience of, non-dual experience, non-conceptual experience. And in 5 is even the capacity to tap right into the mind stream, your unique stream of consciousness, and be able to go back and potentially see previous life and so forth, and have the access that whole stream. But there's no way of just doing that unless you have cultivated that quality of shamatha, the ability to rest there and to do that. Yeah, that's one of those experiments that they're seeking to run at CCR, and they originally thinking, well, if someone can do this, can we test if they go back to when they were 2 years old and then describe situations and they could check out, did that happen? Was that right? And if that was right and it's verified, then can you go back to the before birth to lifetime there? And can you tell a story, and is it right? Can we verify it? And scientifically, and so that's one of capacity or cities that can happen with that ability, cultivating through meditation. So those are things that they're talking about, but you and I just talking about it all just sounds like an interesting story, right? And so 5, you're really accessing things that are not available, just through even a microscope or something. Like we need a microscope to see things we can't see otherwise. Have that technology. This would get into direct first-person experience of the nature of mind. And the thing about the nature of the mind is there's only one person who can experience that. That's you. No microscope can see your mind. But you can learn to. That's why I say, yeah, it has to be directly experienced. That cover it, Carla?
Yeah, I think that pretty much answers it.
Okay. I even got a little woo-woo on you, too, right? All right. Dial it up a notch. Okay. So let's yeah, okay. We can see people do amazing things that defy anything that we can imagine. We can see that. And that's kind of supernatural sometimes, but we can't see their mind. From their side, Buddhas are not limited by the above obscurations, and having perfected their virtuous qualities, they have the ability to effortlessly and spontaneously manifest in limitless ways to benefit sentient beings. However, their power is not omnipotent, omnipotent, right? Omnipotent. I did speech therapy in second grade.
Omnipotent.
Omnipotent. Thank you. In the sense of being able to unilaterally control events. Our ability to be benefited by the Buddhas depends on our receptivity. So, that's the thing, is they can't enlighten us, right? And, that's one of the big kind of questions is, if they could, they would, we all be free, no problem. Yeah, it's one of the big Christian questions, why would God have us suffer, right? It's that, why that, it doesn't make sense, right? And so in terms of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, they're devoting their whole lives so that we don't suffer, but they can't grant you awakening. We have to do that. They can show us the way, they can support us, they can create conditions that can ripen for us. But we need to actually do the work ourselves, which I think the next part of this text gets to. One moment here. I was just looking at myself without sharing it with you. That's not very polite. Okay, just as the sun's light radiates everywhere equally, so do Buddha's awakened activities. Nevertheless, however brilliant the sun may be, its radiance cannot enter an upside-down vessel. Similarly, our karmic obscurations or lack of merit curtail the Buddha's ability to help us. But when the vessel is turned upright, the sun naturally flows in. Similarly, when we purify our minds and accumulate merit, our minds become receptive to the Buddha's awakening activities. And, this is something we've talked about hopefully many times, is creating the conditions to receive the teachings, the fertilizer of merit, the fertilizer of virtue, the fertilizer of compassion, of loving kindness that ripens the mind, ripens the conditions. Studying the Dharma, just focusing on studying the Dharma and writing philosophical papers and having debates, and that could be like pouring water on a rock. I can talk to you about all kinds of from this philosophical school, and so and so said this, and debate all that, but no realization, no, we're missing the meaning, we're missing the depth. So this open heart of loving kindness, the open heart of compassion, the fertilizer of virtue, it was pointed right there through our virtuous activities. We can create these conditions. And as we do so, then, concepts that didn't make any sense to us suddenly start to make sense to us. Teachings ripen. And we become very receptive. In general, even just the opportunity to open the door to be curious, to be receptive. Jetsuma Tenzin always describes the idea of a hallway. The Buddha's doors, the Lama's doors, their doors always open. It's just shining, but ours isn't. And we open it. It's there if we're receptive. And in order to be receptive, that's not something, that's what we talked about last week. It's not something that happens on blind faith. That's not very helpful. It's really a cumulative process in our own lives of really opening ourselves through practice, through exploration, through a sense of faith that's built upon actual evidence in our lives. Evidence. And sometimes that evidence is seeing other people who've done these things. It's very inspiring. I have evidence so-and-so has done this, and I've seen them do it, and their lives change. And evidence in my own life. And something that's just tangible in the sense that we can really lean into it. And sometimes there's just the open curiosity. Something's telling me to be open right now. And I don't know what, but I listen. But that receptivity, that intuitiveness, the conditions that ripen, everything that we've done in our life, creating the conditions to be here in this moment and have access to literally path of liberation. The key to all freedom is now in the palm of your hand. That's pretty amazing. Can we crack the door a little bit? Right? Just crack the door a little bit and see. Maybe peek through. But from their side, they're always there. Those of you who do the morning practice, visualize the Buddha space in front of you. They're always there as soon as we bring our mind. They're already there. We're just opening the door. As our understanding of the mind increases, we will gain conviction in 3 points. First, the basic nature of the mind is pure and clear. Okay. So our Buddha nature is already there. The nature of the mind is pure and clear. Second, afflictions are based on ignorance that apprehends phenomena as existing in the opposite way than they actually exist. Thus, ignorance and afflictions born from it are adventitious and do not inhere in the nature of the mind. So that's the key thing. Anger, stress, worry, fear, all these afflictive states, all of those are arising from misperception. It's not the nature of our mind. We don't have to have those afflictions. They're not inherent at all. Third, it is possible to cultivate powerful antidotes, realistic and beneficial mental states that root out ignorance, afflictions and other obscurations. So this is the baseline working hypothesis. And this is something we can all adopt right now, today. And just think of your awareness, being aware. Right? We have awareness. It's always there. And then what I become aware of, watch how I fill it in. When the objects appeared, and I start filling it in. And then, and we just watch that process of elaboration. We elaborate on the person, how they're dressed. We can sum them up right away, you know. Total deadhead, man. You know what they're like. Uh, you know, somebody with a MAGA hat. Boy, I'll fill them in, right? Somebody with how about some old bell bottoms, man? Some moccasins. Can fill that dude in. I've been that dude. Yeah. But you know, we just fill them in, and then based on my things, well, I like that, or I don't like that, or this person. I'm just filling in all this detail, and I'm elaborating what they're like, and so forth, and what I like and what I don't like. But if we back it up to more of just awareness, and awareness is not even the depth of awareness can get to that pure state, but just our general, just awareness, right? I haven't filled in anything. It's just objects. It's just things coming to our senses. And then the labels come, and then the filling, the elaboration, and then the pleasure or the adversity to it, or the boredom with it. It's not that interesting. Really don't like this. Really do like that. Then everything starts filling in. And all of that's based on something that's not true, thinking that that is making me angry, or that is making me happy, or this person is like that, instead of I'm experiencing this person like that. And it's not how we perceive them. We pretty much know they're like that, except they're not like that. I'm experiencing them like that. And so we start to see that all of these, things we stress over, get angry about, have cravings for, desire, and they're all temporary states that come and go, and arising contingent upon the value that I base upon them one way or the other. Sometimes no value at all. That gives this experience, and those experience reify what I'm observing, and then that's the way it is. And then those things get, I have feelings, and then I don't have any control over those feelings: happy, anger, anxiety, excitement. They just popping up. And then I'm actually doing things that go against my very heartfelt desire to do something else. We yell at our loved ones. I mean, that's fascinating, isn't it? The more I love you, the more likely it is we can yell at you, right? Yeah, Sam brought up a teaching on that the other night. It was just, it's easy to be nice to strangers. My loved ones, man. And a lot of attachment there, a lot of emotion. And then we actually can be really, I want to be virtuous today, be kind and patient. And then, I'm not kind or patient. Okay, wow. So we can see how these afflictive states uh, get in the way. But they just seem so real. We get used to them. We just get used to being afflicted. And then we think that's the way the world is, and that ignorance gets strong. It just gets strong. And so even when now we're talking about obscurations and walls, even when we're offered complete freedom, something that will absolutely change your life, often we don't do it. Because, I can do something else that'll feel pretty good right now. Who's playing at the belly up? Come on. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but you get the idea, right? I can go do something else. I've never been to the belly up, by the way. I should probably change that experience sometime, right? For those of you online, that's a local venue in the valley. So my point was that you can start just by adopting an attitude that maybe you are pure and your mind is pure, and that these afflictive states that are arising in your mind are temporary, coming and going. They're not who you are. And you might start noticing that what I was really upset about last Tuesday, I can't even remember this Wednesday. A week ago Tuesday, you might remember yesterday. Let's go back a week. But there's no way you're going to remember what you're so freaking upset about 3 Tuesdays ago at 3 o'clock when it was just so, you know. And, but then, this Wednesday when I'm that upset, I actually think it's real. Like it's a big thing. It's going to last. And I don't even remember that I've been that angry and upset and worried or anxious hundreds of thousands of times in my life. And here I am in this moment. Somehow I survived. And yet I can get just as angry and frustrated in a new moment in a similar situation. It's wild, isn't it? So a misperception runs so deep, and the habits and the conditioning are very strong. But it's not who we are, because we also have the capacity to be at peace. We have the capacity to engage in virtue. Yes. Microphone. People online.
And then I'm standing in front of the camera. Okay. How do you not allow like misperception to turn into avoidance? If that makes sense.
Give an example.
Like if you are sad about something, how do you understand that it's okay to be sad about something and have that feeling of sadness, but understand, like, even with all the understanding that it won't last forever and that you'll be outside of it? How do you, in some ways, I feel like you could just be like, well, I don't have to be sad about this, so I won't.
Right. Okay, good. I think I got the gist. Yeah, a lot of people talk, there's this term that people use called a spiritual bypass, where it's all empty, this doesn't really matter. And what I'm really doing is disassociating from the emotions or the feelings. And I'm not dealing with them. I'm not feeling the sadness. And to understand it is the sadness is important, right? It's important. My problem is I don't want to feel the sadness. That's where the learning is, right? The learning is I don't want to feel certain feelings, and therefore I'm going to try to manipulate the feeling rather than the cause of the feeling. Those are two very different things, right? But if I understand that the cause of my sadness is arising within my own continuum, my own imprints, and typically sadness is around loss and is usually dealing with love or care or attachment. And so when we lose someone, right, that sadness is an expression of our either more pure love for them or our attachment to them, and it's good information to learn about ourselves, to explore. And so we wouldn't want to not be sad. the me not wanting to be sad is now I'm caught up in ignorance and reified and just trying to change the emotions to suit me, as opposed to understanding that in my human experience, the sadness or my anxiety or things that I don't want to feel are showing me my mind. They're teaching me. They're things to experience. And I think I brought up last week, could have been another session. Just in modern Western psychology with, Scott Peck, is all neurosis arises from avoiding legitimate pain, right? Feelings we don't want to feel, pain we don't want to endure, and then we create all these coping mechanisms. So when we understand how interdependent we are and how emotions show up, it's helpful to experience them. So you wouldn't want to avoid them or resist them. But at the same time, harmful thoughts and emotions, anger, resentments, things of that nature, the quicker you can realize that it's arising out of misperception, it can fade quick, So noticing that one's frustrated, I'm not trying to manipulate the frustration, but I'm kind of looking at the cause, right? The core, which is, me thinking someone should be different than they are, which is kind of insane. And then once I realize that's insane, then, the resentment can fade. But if I'm just trying to not be resentful and it's all empty anyway, that's not very helpful. So what does happen over time is a greater capacity to work and understand around the causes instead of manipulating the results, the ripening of the feelings and so forth. And so, as a matter of fact, I think that's going to be like the topic of the talk I think I'll give at CCR next month. I think one of the topics they offered was passivity versus equanimity, right? Being passive and ignoring or whatever, whatever, versus actual equanimity, which is stable, not caught up in extremes, but fully engaged and willing to, like, everything becomes important. I think that's one of the topics that they offered. So maybe we'll talk about that. Because, it's tricky. And we can get not so good at it, and then we can get better at it. And some days we're pretty good at it, and other days, but it's a fine tuning that takes place. But stuffing feelings never helpful, right? The analogy they use is like trying to block a stream and just, right, rolls over in a torrent. So the invitation here is to explore this working hypothesis that we're already okay. Mine's okay. But because of all of those layers of conditioning and the misperceiving self and phenomena, which then gives rise to attachments and aversions and so forth, we really want something to be like this. We really don't want something to be like that. Just listen to the news. You'll find a lot of things you don't want. Hopefully you'll find something you do like sometimes. A whole lot more good news channels. But you were going to notice how the feelings arise, then we're going to notice, oh, okay, well, that's, me really attaching certain qualities to these things. But at the same time, we want to don't get in that whole, nihilistic way of being, right? Like, none of this matters. It's all just coming and going. None of this is real. Now you're at the extreme that will undermine any growth whatsoever. So we talk about the middle path and the two truths. And so we don't want to think everything is as it is and get caught up in worldly activities, trying to have more power and looks or non-aging cream, whatever. Uh, it just gives me a kick when I non-aging. There's a book out there, How to Live Forever or something. Wow. But all the things we can get caught up in and really wrapped up around. And then nothing matters. The middle path is that there is cause and effect. What we do makes a difference. Matter of fact, everything we do makes a difference. I mean, that's valuable. And we're all here interdependently, so I'm not. My problem is I'm selfish and self-centered, right? And I'm trying to get my house and my things and my partner and my stuff, And there's other people and we compete with things. And the answer is recognize that there's nothing independent about you and you're a part of all of this with everybody else. And our purpose here is to be helpful, to do our purpose, to be, contributing to life in a more accurate way of interdependent understanding. Now, there's not much to get worked up about. Then everything that's arising is an opportunity to understand, to learn, to grow, to contribute. And everyone who you experience is there to help you be free. And that's pretty cool if we can get there. And typically the ones you create the biggest afflictions are the greatest help. Yeah. So, back to this starting hypothesis is what if we just started adopting that view a little bit? And that's what you do. You want to test it. You want to notice when you get really attached, either in desire or anger or anxiety, whatever it is, notice the underlying story and seeing how those are arising based on my elaborations of how I'm experiencing something. And you can start to notice that all those afflictions are arising because I'm misperceiving something. I'm attributing qualities that they don't inherently have. And then if that, starts to, then it's like, oh, there's a framework here that I can work with. Let's see what else he's got here. All right, microphone. Most of that paragraph's underlined. That's a good sign.
I was thinking so much about the two truths over the past week and reread that chapter in the last book a few times and was really,
You can tell us about it.
well, I was trying to find that middle way of caring, but not caring too much while being very frustrated with somebody, frustrated with myself as well. And last night I watched a documentary on dark matter, which was super cool and interesting. And I was trying to just distract myself. But I like what you said, that I think you said meditation is a technology that can maybe help us see micro or macro things in ways that we haven't before. I just love that. But this morning, my practice is I go for a walk in the morning to the river. I say the refuge prayer. I leave my phone home. I try to be as present as I can. And I thought about the shamatha course that I took last year through you and how you said, just show up for the practice and you've already done it. Like you don't have to have a perfect practice. You don't have to attain something. Just show up and
follow directions.
Follow directions. That's what it was. So I felt like I was doing that this morning. And even though I was so grumpy, I went to the river and I was saying the refuge prayer and I was saying meta meditations for this person I'm frustrated with and for myself. And on my way back, I had this really beautiful moment of just feeling the sun and realizing that the sun is free every day. Like, no matter how stressed I am, or happy I am, or anxious, or financially stressed, or whatever it may be, I just had this realization of like, wow, the sun is just here every day, free, giving life to everything. And it was such an incredible moment. And I really attributed it to just following directions. And like, I wasn't trying to push myself out of feeling frustrated. I was just present and even just the words generosity, ethics, patience, joyous effort, concentration, wisdom, just saying those every day helps me so much. And then the rest of the day was good and kind of went up and down in other ways too. But yeah, I just wanted to share that experience.
Thank you. And that whole analogy works perfectly with that whole, like the Buddha's the sun, right? The sun is shining all the time. The teachings are shining all the time. But I can't even notice that when I'm caught up in what I'm stressing about or what I'm angry about, when I'm right. The obscurations of the mind don't, what I attend to becomes my reality, right? And because the mind's attending to all these other things that aren't even how we exist, I can't experience something that's free, available, nurturing, and kind, which is always already there, right? I think you summed up the whole.
Yeah.
So,
I really appreciate that you teach us that we are that still water beneath, not just the waves. And so even just looking at the river this morning, I was able to think of that too. But it's just things coming and going.
yeah, thank you. Good to hear. Okay, well, I think that's going to be a good spot to pause on, and a good opportunity to see about adopting this view. See if it fits for you or not, and then we can unpack it a little bit more next week. Okay, let's go ahead and dedicate the merit and the wisdom of our time together. A lot of things we could have been doing on a Wednesday night, maybe going to the belly up or something like that. But we have taken the time to come together to support each other in cultivating qualities of our hearts and minds in ways that are virtuous, motivated by loving kindness, compassion, and understanding. Seeking a path to eliminate afflictions, cultivate understanding of ourselves and others, watering and nurturing a path that leads to awakening, not merely for ourselves, but so we can be of benefit to all beings. So let us collectively dedicate this merit and this wisdom for the benefit of all beings. May our efforts find their way into the world, eliminating suffering and nurturing the seeds of liberation for all. And let us also dedicate our merit and wisdom for our own continued spiritual growth, that we may recognize our Buddha nature and be of greatest benefit to all. And with that context and motivation, those who'd care to can join in the formal refuge prayer. Oops, if I share it, sorry about that. By this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of Guru Buddha, that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare soha. Om tare tu tare, tu